There's some pretty major changes coming here on the Cow Emporium farm. Like to talk a little bit about what's going on and give you some idea of what's going to be happening in the future. Uh, for those of you who've watched this, you're probably wondering why in the world we've been farming with such old machinery. And it's kind of been part of our plan. Our size is small enough that we've been pretty limited to what kind of machinery we can buy. So our strategy has been to make the older equipment last just as long as we can, and to try and get as much out of it as we can, because the new machinery is way too big for our land base and very expensive. And even to buy used equipment now, it's so big that we'd need just a huge tractor to even think about pulling it. So just because of our size and the scale, we've just limited ourselves to the machinery we have, and we've been kind of limping it by. And I've been pretty good at keeping the old stuff running, more or less. If you've watched some of our harvest videos, you can see some of the aggravation that the older equipment has caused. But I'll give you a short list of some of our equipment. We have a 1974 Chev 3-ton grain truck that we bought brand new, and that's 48 years old. We've got a 1968 Ford 3-ton we bought used in the 90s. That's a 54-year-old truck. We've got a 20-foot set of hoe drills that we bought brand new back in 1988. That's 34 years old. 60-foot field sprayer we bought brand new in 1990. That's 32 years old. Our 860 combine, we bought it used in 1988. I think it's a 1981, so it's 41 years old. And we've had 3 of these kind of swathers that we've had. They're all more or less a 1974 version, so they're all about 48 years old, just keeping them for parts. I'm going to just not talk about the augers and the bins and stuff like that, just our 6 main pieces of farm equipment. The average age on it is 43 years old. So, it's getting up there, and it's pretty well time to replace a lot of it if it's going to run at all. Some of you wonder about our strange name, the Cow Emporium. What's that about? Well, it started off as kind of a joke. It was a tongue-in-cheek nod to the fact that we use a whole bunch of old stuff and we're not super fancy. We've more or less concentrated on the tractors and the baler and the hay bind, trying to keep it a little bit newer because the cows and the hay have been our main focus, and we've just been growing barley for feed over the past few years to meet the feed and bedding demands of our cattle. Well, we were making enough money with the grain end of things to meet our cash flow demands. We weren't making enough to replace the equipment, and we knew that. So that was the plan. Use the equipment as long as possible, and maybe try and find some old stuff, but keep it going as long as possible until we reached a point where we decided to do a transition, and that's what we're going to talk about right now. The last 2 harvests, it was becoming very clear that the equipment was just about not up to the task. If you've seen a couple of my combine repair videos, you'll go, holy cow, it really is falling apart. In the years before the past 2 years, we've been able to get through harvest with a few minor breakdowns and stuff, but these last 2 years, the combine is coming apart at the seams. So that's a major thing that we needed to address. And well, farming with this old equipment and having it break down, it makes good drama for YouTube. It's super stressful. And we're a real farm. This isn't a hobby for us. This is how we make our living, and it's how we pay our mortgage and put food on the table. And my wife has an off-farm job, but that's it. That's where the money comes from. So the decisions we make have to be based on, as a best business that we can under the circumstances. And, not only does it have to meet our requirements, it has to my folks are still here, and it needs to provide a retirement income for the older generation. So, the farm has to work, whatever that looks like. We need to try and make that happen. So we decided that it was time to approach a good neighbor to see if they would be willing to do the grain end of the farming for us on a crop share. And we would continue forward with the cattle. And this offers a whole bunch of advantages. First of all, we wouldn't have to replace any of the equipment. And because they are bigger, they have all the advantages of scale and modern equipment that we are just super lacking. There's a big list of advantages of scale in this kind of farming that Annette might put up there. I'm not going to get into it all unless she asks me to. So another thing is with their no-till equipment or min-till, their equipment is a lot more environmentally friendly, and it's computerized, and it's very efficient, and it frees up a huge amount of labor for me. And because our scale has been so small, our crop rotation, we used to grow, like we had oats and peas and wheat and barley, and we grew some fall rye and summer fallow. And before my time, there was flax and canola, but it became harder and harder for us to do this with our older equipment. And then the amount of waste that was happening because we were growing too many different things became a problem. So we basically just reduced our crop rotation down to barley and hay for the cows, which was, paying the bills, but it's not necessarily the best way of doing things. But we had our reasons for doing that too. So with the neighbor doing this on share, this opens up a whole possibility for growing more lucrative crops, other than feed barley. For example, he could grow canola or field peas or wheat, or feed barley if he chose to, and we could get a share of that. And if we grew a crop that was worth more money and got a share off of, say, canola, and then bought our feed barley, that makes more money per acre for us, and it all works good that way. The disadvantages, and they're kind of scary, are we would lose total control over our supply chain. We've always, grew our own barley and had our own straw and stuff. I mean, there's been years where we've had crop failures and had to buy in stuff. So, I mean, this has happened before. But it's a little bit scary, knowing that you have to buy in stuff. And the way prices are right now, it's just scary whether you're making it yourself or whether you're buying it from somebody. The prices are just crazy. But another thing is we'll have to be a little bit more careful of where our cows are going to be and when, because we want to keep he's basically going to be renting the land from us on a share basis. So that's going to be another thing we're going to have to do. And like if we had a crop failure and we were farming it ourselves, then we would get crop insurance from, like, drought, for example, and that may not be a thing if he's farming it. So we'll have to look into all of that to see how that's all going to shake down. One thing with drought is if it rains and you do something, you look like a genius, and then if you have drought, it doesn't matter what you do, you look like an idiot. So I guess we'll find out. One of the really cool things of all these changes that's happening, like, we're still doing the cows, and I'm not completely not farming yet. We're going to put in about 30 acres of oats for green feed. So I'll be doing a little bit of seeding and hopefully getting the old combine running just a bit to hopefully get some seed off of the oats if we get any rain, and we'll have a little bit for seed and maybe a little bit for feed. And the other cool thing too is he's got some really cool modern equipment, and we'll be able to, we've got permission from him to film this process, this modern farming process with him using the, an air seeder and a modern combine and all the rest of it. And be really cool to see those modern farming practices in action and contrast them against, what I've been doing in the past and what I'll still be doing a little bit of to try and, keep the cows going and make stuff like that happen. So yeah, that's what's happening. And I guess if you have some questions or something, you can leave them, and Annette's really good at getting back at that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's what's going on the Cow Emporium.